Yes. Welcome to Seller Sessions. I am your host, Sharon Evan, and today I have with me Dana Midkiff from Dana. What is your brand on a coaching level? What do you call just your name, Dana? So just from Dana Midkiff Coaching. Yeah. Awesome, Dana. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to today's podcast because it's a subject that I know nothing about. So I'm really, really happy to have you here. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
For those of you who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the handmade side of things? And then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a handmade seller. But originally I went to college and got my accounting degree. In the States, I was a CPA. So I did all of the studying for everything that takes to pass one of the hardest exams possible, and did what the world told me I was supposed to do and worked on succeeding at that. But I was 6 months into, after I'd had my second child, and still just kind of in my mid-20s, just trying to get further ahead. And we had some debt that we wanted to pay off. So of all things, I just browsed Pinterest and started to try to find things that I could just sell or make or whatever to make money. I never really intended for it to become this. I never intended to not be an accountant. Never intended to kind of upend my whole family's plan for everything. It made more sense just to follow the world and do corporate and all of that. And the business and my own entrepreneurial spirit kind of had another thing to say for that. So it grew to something that, I mean, I'm 8 years in now at this point. So obviously there's a lot that's happened over the last 8 years to get me to this point. But we just, I say we, but in the beginning, it was just me just doing the grind and figuring out how to sell these things. Started on Facebook Marketplace. And then I went to Etsy. In October of 2015 is when the handmade category actually opened. It was not ever an available option inside of Amazon until 2015. And I was one of the first sellers on there. They allowed you to apply a couple months ahead of time. So when the day it went live, my items were on there. And I've basically just learned and adapted over the last 5 years to a place now where I have employees who make the items for me, and I help other people learn how to sell on Amazon because I'm not the one making my products all the time. So it's kind of grown into a beast that never really was meant to be, but it's where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, I love that. That's crazy because, well, it's not crazy. It's inspiring and it's amazing because, most people don't even really know too much, I think, about the handmade side of Amazon. And the people because it kind of sounds like it's not that the people that I know that do sell on handmade, they're usually, for example, women who like making jewelry, right? They already have this thing that they do. And then they're like, where can I sell it? And with you, it sounds like it was the opposite. You were just like, how else can I make money? What else can I do? Found something and then started making it first yourself. Yes. I'm guessing it was you.
Yeah, actually... I made it. I had my hands in all of the things up until the last 2 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah. I hired out employees to kind of help me about a year in, and I haven't looked back from that. Delegation is now my favorite thing to do.
That is just so cool. So if we fast forward to today, from what I know today, you've now built a 7-figure handmade business, literally.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yes. Awesome. So I had to actually do a little bit of research yesterday about the handmade side of things so that I know what to ask, because I don't know a lot about handmade. I have 2 people who are 3D printing products and selling it under handmade just for the sake of like proof of concept. But apart from that, I know nothing about handmade. So this is like, I was really waiting for the podcast because I really want to learn from you. So first of all, when we think of handmade products, most people would usually think about Etsy, right? That's usually the way that it goes. So if we were to do an Amazon versus an Etsy, like what is the difference between selling handmade on Etsy and selling handmade on Amazon
Right.
together? Do you sell on both? So
I do. Yeah. I sell on both, and I also sell on my own website. So any brand that you're building, be it handmade or be it private label or whatever avenue that you're going, it's still something that you have to own and grow. And so with that, I do have my own Shopify site, and I do sell on Etsy, because I'm definitely a believer, especially in the handmade categories, to not have all your eggs in one basket, and to help grow that brand in general. As far as comparing the two platforms, I usually tell people that Etsy is kind of the easier way to go, because a lot of the people that I'm working with day in and day out are starting from the place that they know their craft and they don't know how to sell it, whereas most of the people you're working with day in and day out want to grow a business and they don't know how to, they don't know what to sell. And so it's kind of a whole different approach for it. And with that, Etsy is a little easier for kind of newbies in a handmade market to jump on and figure out the back end of that. If you're someone, I mean, if you're someone who's deciding to just launch one product in a private label format, like, figuring out the back end of Amazon is daunting. Also trying to figure out how to grow a handmade product, create a good quality product with that, figure out how to ship it, figure out how to get it out of your basement, whatever that looks like. Amazon's not usually step one for that, whereas your people are usually, Amazon is the step one, it's the only step. And so it's something that I usually, the people that I'm working with, or the friends that I have that are going through this, usually are kind of proficient at Etsy, at least in understanding how to sell their items, so that they can jump on a platform that basically they can spend their time focusing on what are all these boxes on this listing that Etsy doesn't give me that many choices. Like, what do I do with this? So that's usually the biggest hurdle to overcome.
So for people listening, what exactly is considered a handmade product? Now, I know that I was thinking about, do I ask this question or not? But I'm asking the question because what is considered a handmade product? Because I know that one of my one of the people that I work with who's 3D printing, they're only 3D printing for concept, and they decided to put it under handmade, and I didn't understand why under handmade. So what is necessarily a handmade product, and do all handmade products need to be put under Amazon handmade, or can they be not under handmade or just, the normal marketplace? So,
Right. Those are all legitimate questions, because I've had people ask, they're like, okay, well, but the product that I buy from India is handmade by someone. So what, isn't everything handmade? And that being said, Amazon is notoriously secret of knowing kind of what it takes to get in and what doesn't. So for them, there's an application process. And I know that was kind of one of the other things to separately discuss, but the application process is kind of what tells us what they are considering to be handmade. That being said, they don't tell you which answers get you in and which don't. But the juried application that goes with that. So it is a category on Amazon. So you show up on regular Amazon search, you're eligible to be found in all of those searches. But when you're used to being gated in, say, grocery or something that takes invoices and it takes specific documents, the handmade process is more of a survey. So they're asking you of a sliding scale of what percentage of your item is handmade. You get a statement piece where you get to, in a couple sentences, describe your process. And what they're trying to do is vet you. And so based off of kind of what category inside of handmade that you're asking to get into and how you answer some of those sliding scale questions, some people are approved almost immediately. But if you're going into maybe a little bit more of a saturated handmade category, or you answer that sliding scale at a place that might, what it seems to me like it might then trigger a manual review, where somebody's actually reading that statement, looking at it, trying to understand how you are making these products and if they consider it in their back end of the handmade department to be handmade or not. So it's kind of just approaching it from trying to sell to them that you are not a Chinese factory creating this. They love to, because one of the things inside the application is images of you making your product. So I usually tell people, if you're applying with a, say, a crochet blanket, submitting the photo images of your crochet blanket, but then your husband taking a photo or whatever of it. And I know that sound like I'm literally working with really small scale people here sometimes.
Yeah.
But that someone takes a picture of you making that actual blanket that you are trying to get submitted in for. That's what they want to see. They want to prove that you are not just hiring immigrant workers, putting them in.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't. They don't tell you. Okay, no, we didn't let you in because you showed us this or didn't. But it's definitely something that they have a manual review that happens with most of the applications, just to prove that what it is that you make is something that they consider to be handmade.
On a category level, like when I think of handmade, it's usually things like obviously jewelry always comes to mind, but jewelry and blankets and things that people sew and things like that. Are there typical sort of categories because I'm thinking the people listening to us, on seller sessions, most of them are high level Amazon sellers, but there's always somebody who could be good at something.
Yes.
Right. And they haven't even thought about turning that into a business.
Yes.
Right. I have a neighbor that lives down the road, and she's really, really amazing at making these plush type of little like plush toys. Right. Mm-hmm. And she sews them. And I've told her a million times, like, get it on Etsy, get it on Etsy. Like I didn't even think about telling her to get it on Amazon Handmade. But I think that anyone sort of listening that is good at making something, are we saying that they could technically just put it up on Etsy, Amazon Handmade, and it would basically good luck?
I mean, that being said, one of your questions about Amazon versus Etsy both involve SEO research. They involve product development. They involve photography. So you don't want your products to still look like you took the picture in the basement kind of thing. I did want to address one of the other questions I forgot to answer before. You asked about if a handmade product has to be sold in the handmade category, and that is 100% not the case. No. You can take that product and basically private label it. You're just the one who's sourcing it rather than it being
getting someone else to make it.
Right. Yeah,
got it. That's an interesting. So why would somebody put it on Amazon Handmade? Like, what's the difference between when you do put it on Amazon Handmade and when you're just putting it on the normal marketplace? I'm calling it the normal marketplace, but you know what I mean.
Everybody calls it. People are like normal Amazon, and I'm like, no, I hate when people say regular Amazon, because then that makes it sound like we're not getting found on Amazon. But I mean, there's a couple of advantages. So it was designed basically to pull Etsy sellers. It is designed to not really fit the mold of the rest of Amazon. So we don't have UPCs. We don't have anything that's associated with some type of identification product. It's basically just SKUs and ASINs. You can FBA it, and we can kind of talk about that in a little bit. But with that, it's also by nature not what I call piggyback. No one can piggyback on it. You essentially have brand registry, and I'll clarify that in a second. But there is no ability for you to just go on a listing that is in the handmade and say, "Oh, I also sell this." You have to create your own store, your own brand under the handmade category that would basically you could steal someone's pictures, but you cannot piggyback on that listing. You are the only one, who can sell that item. And so that's kind of where I think it took Amazon a while to get this category applicable and available to us, because the back end looks different. Like I sell on both regular Amazon and handmade, and the listings are completely different. You have the options for customizations. You have the options to be able to have the items personalized. And it just doesn't have a lot of the super detailed ways that things are set up. We just got bullet points in our listings like 2.5 months ago. So it's a category that was that has evolved, but it has definitely not been around as long as the regular Amazon categories. So those are the kind of the biggest things. And I kind of mentioned brand registry, but it's still important to have brand registry on Amazon, even in handmade, because you then get the benefits of the storefront and setting it all up like that. Amazon's going to defend you faster no matter which category if you are brand registered. But as far as the fear that people have of getting onto Amazon and being afraid that someone's going to hijack that listing, it's just not a thing in handmade. And you also don't have to pay for the UPC. So it's definitely catering to a market of someone who wants to sell their baby blanket on a platform that it can get found, but I don't have to then go pay for GS1s or anything like that to get this product out there to the masses.
So many questions came up in my head while I was speaking. So first thing, I also wrote it down, but the first thing so we've put a product up on Amazon Handmade. We now need to get it discovered. People need to be able to actually find the product. So in regular Amazon, we would use PPC and also, of course, external traffic for that. So on a handmade level, is it the same approach?
It's exactly the same. Yes, you have to do your SEO research. You can 100% have a PPC strategy. I mean, that's part of how I've gotten to where I'm at, is I've mastered the PPC around my products, and the PPC is only as good as the SEO. And so if you haven't started there and done that work, that's why a lot of times I feel like Etsy sellers, having kind of mastered the Etsy side of it, or at least been familiar with how to get found on there, you at least understand that SEO is important. You can't just put up a title called baby blanket because you know how to make a pretty baby blanket and expect it's going to get found. So 100% getting further reviews for items help it, and increasing your PPC and adjusting those avenues of learning and growing inside of your business are 100% a factor in it. And it just like with any other private label product or whatever it be, FBA is a big factor in that. So once you've kind of gotten to the point where you've mastered getting your listings up and figuring out the platform, then I usually tell people to try to jump into FBA. But the cool thing about Handmade is that you do have a personalization factor. And so while you can't duplicate listings on Amazon, you can have a personalized version in FBM, and then a non-personalized version that you turn around and send into FBA to kind of test it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if most people that think of it, Handmade know that you can actually do FBA.
Yeah. Oh, that's how I have found my success. I would not be able to plan as far ahead and create the products to optimize Q4 if I wasn't like preparing these items ahead and sending them in. The same as anybody else who's running an Amazon business.
Yeah, no, of course. I just because when I think of Amazon Handmade, I do think like on an Etsy level, where maybe they only make the products once they actually get, like, you can order and then you make the product. So I understand that it's a lot more serious than not that if you do that it's not serious, but what I mean is you're already making probably hundreds of units in advance, sending them into Amazon.
100%, yes.
Just the difference is it's not made in China or in a factory. The factory are people that work for you in your house or in your warehouse, wherever it is.
Oh, it was my house for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's really awesome. So, so we know that we need to use PPC in order to get found. I already know the answer to this question, but it probably is something that people think of. So Handmade and regular Amazon products will show up though, unless you're specifically looking on Handmade, they will show up on the same search terms. Yes. Because I have seen on search terms, especially if you'd like go to, I've just been doing a lot of like 3D printing content and things like that lately. So I've gone a lot of the times to keywords like 3D printed and things like that. And I'll see handmade products and I'll know that they're handmade because of the way the listing looks. And then I'll see like a non-handmade product, but they'll all be coming onto the same page.
Correct.
So on a handmade level, is there also an area where buyers can go in just to see the handmade, or is it everything muddled up on a buyer's level? Like, is it mixed with the rig?
you can drill down into the handmade category. It's one of the actual tabs. If you're on a desktop of Amazon.com, it's one of the actual tabs that's up there at the top. Just like if you were to try to, I mean, most people don't just go browse grocery, but it's up there at the top, you know. So it is something that's kind of browsable. And with that, inside of the handmade category is your kind of subcategory. So if you're going in the direction of home and decor, you can drill down into handmade and home and decor, or baby, or whichever kind of direction that you're headed for that. That being said, a lot of buyers, like you said, don't even understand what handmade at Amazon is, much less that it even exists. And so, yes, a lot of it is just being found by you being filtered in with the non-handmade items inside of regular Amazon search. And that's one of the biggest struggles that I have. When people come to me and they're like, I'm not getting found, I'm not getting found. I can type in my product title and Amazon doesn't show it, because they're used to an Etsy mindset where at some point, if you scroll through the number of pages, your baby blanket's going to show up. But Amazon doesn't work like that. You have to prove to them that you're a seller worth even getting found. And so they're like, oh, it's just so much harder. And I'm like, well, it takes work. You have to do the SEO. You're now not just competing with handmade people. You're competing with the Chinese sellers who also sell baby blankets. So, I mean, you're in a difficult market here, a difficult platform to get found. But that's the case for anyone on Amazon, that you have to do the work to get found.
So would it make more sense from what you're saying is, because I'm trying to think of like, who is the typical seller that would sell handmade on Amazon? So what would that seller look like? Because, which of course you can ask this about any business model, but on an Amazon handmade level, because I actually didn't know your story was that you were looking for what can you sell, and then you were like, hey, I'm going to make this product. I thought that you possibly had, because it's a typical thought when it comes to handmade products, I think. Right. That I thought that you were probably amazing at making this one thing, and they were like, okay, how can I sell it? And it was actually the opposite. You were like, what can I do, or what can I make, and then sell it? So what does a typical seller that wants to come and sell on Amazon, handmade specifically, what does that type of seller usually look like to you? And the reason I'm asking this question is for the people that may want to get into Amazon, don't have possibly the capital to get into private label yet, don't have the capital to get, or the ability to, because a lot of people say, I really want to sell on Amazon, but they don't know anything about Amazon yet, right? And handmade is something that is not really spoken about in the industry that, you know, where I mingle. And when I met you, I was like so excited. I just wanted to learn all about handmade for the sake of knowing how to help people that possibly private label isn't for them yet. Right. So what does that typical type of seller sort of look like, and who would Amazon handmade really suit? Yeah. So kind of touching on the direction that I went with it earlier, I think if you are trying to launch a handmade product, that seller is going to be someone who has kind of mastered the quality and the shipping issues. Think about, I mean, Amazon will eat you alive if you decide on day one that you're going to just decide that to test my shipping quality, and if my products are going to fall apart, if you decide to test that in a Amazon warehouse, I mean, you're done. You're done for. So at least figure out how to create good quality products that are going to help launch your seller quality on Amazon. So with that, a lot of people at least figure out how to sell on Etsy. It's not a precursor. There's a lot of people who decide to launch kind of both platforms at the same time, or maybe just Amazon Handmade. But the people who only do Amazon Handmade from day one are people who like the people that you're working with, that they already understand that this takes work. So it's kind of usually two different groups of people. It's the people who they want to figure out something to sell on Handmade, or to sell on Amazon, I'm sorry. Or it's the people who
have a handmade quality product, but they don't know how yet to even figure out how to use that to pay off credit card debt or whatever it looks like. So it's kind of two different groups of people that are either one, having to evolve into making sure that they're selling good quality products, or it's having to evolve into understanding that this business mindset is going to take a lot of work. And so those are usually the two kind of different directions that people are coming from. I float in the middle of the people, like my people. When I say my people, I don't really have my people, because I have you all that are Amazon sellers, and I sell outside of the handmade category. So those conversations I can get into. I love it. And it drives me to help to understand where people are coming from both directions. But I also have my handmade people, and so I kind of find a way to meet them in the middle, and understanding that this is a kind of middle ground here to really find success. And to your point of the people who don't want to do the whole cliche $10,000 to invest in launching a private label business. Yeah, I mean, anything that you do is going to take longer if you don't invest significant money in it. But a handmade business isn't usually going to require $10,000 to start day one. It's going to take a little bit longer to scale that as you kind of learn the things, then the nuances of selling a handmade product. But the idea is all the same. It's just usually a different set of people that are coming into the Amazon world that just, if they're not careful and they're like, wait a second, Amazon wants me to answer my messages every 24 hours. Etsy doesn't care. Forget it. I'm done. Like, they just quit. And I'm like, oh, yeah. You can't just quit. You have to understand this is a big deal. You're choosing to sell on a big platform here.
So I think that some takeaways for me is that Amazon Handmade isn't necessarily just for the person that is good at something, right? So there are obviously the people that already have possibly a business running on Etsy through making jewelry or you know, I don't know, making blankets or things like that.
My example I always give people is tutus. Like, if you decide you want to sell birthday tutus, go for it. Like, yeah, totally.
So it doesn't have to be necessarily for the people who are already doing that. It can also be for, you know, I say a stay-at-home mom or someone who needs some extra income or whatever it may be, and who doesn't necessarily want to go straight into regular Amazon yet, right?
Yep.
Or maybe not even want to go into regular Amazon at all, or maybe they just want to get their feet wet and understand how it works. So Amazon Handmade could be a great sort of foot in the door on an entry level to get into it, because it also kind of sounds like something that you did as well. You started on Amazon Handmade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you also scaled outside of Amazon Handmade, from what I'm understanding as well. And I think that that's actually a conversation that needs to be spoken about a lot more, especially I'm really trying not to pull the mum card here, but especially for the stay-at-home types of mums,
because that's my community. Like, that's my people. Yeah.
It's basically what I'm also hearing, and it's not only. I mean, like I said, I've got a lot of people that I currently am working with who are doing all sorts of different 3D printing for proof of concept and things like that. And I've just learned so much about 3D printing in the last month. That, like, technically, I just think what you said about the hijacking thing, that you don't have hijackers in handmade, is I didn't know that, and that's pretty amazing, right? That's in my opinion, like, totally a reason to start selling on Amazon Handmade if you don't have to sell it on the regular Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know what the pros and cons are yet, which is something that we could speak about, since you already know how to compare the two, right?
Yeah.
But even if somebody was 3D printing or something like that, you know, they could technically, because 3D printing is still technically hand making the product, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's nothing against you using machines to create your product. That's just kind of the again, they're not going to tell you to what percentage you can use that machine to create your product. But 100%.
So we talked a little bit, because I did want to ask you earlier about the pre-vetting side of it. So pre-vetting, because we touched on it briefly, the pre-vetting side on an Amazon level is technically just wanting to see images of you making the product? Is it that easy?
Yeah, it's like a survey. So they're going to ask you what percentage of your item is handmade, how many employees do you have, tell me about your process, tell me where you're located, and then they want to kind of see a picture of your workspace. So yeah, they're just trying to look and make sure that what you are applying and stating that you are handmade really is what they're intending for this platform, because with it do come those benefits of not being hijacked and not having to pay for UPCs, et cetera. And so they're not going to just let everyone, yes, people slip through the cracks. It's like any other platform, but they're intending on vetting you in a way of just kind of verifying that that your item is what they consider to be handmade.
And just before I ask this question, I put a question up on the screen, but so Amazon Handmade, if I have a Seller Central account and I want to then apply for an Amazon Handmade account, is that a totally different account?
No, it's all the same.
Same account, but the dashboard looks?
No, it's just a category. You're just basically getting ungated in this handmade category. And so the dashboard is the same. Everything looks the same. Your FBA sales show up the same. The only thing that kind of functions different is when you go to add a product, I have a screen that pops up where yours goes straight to kind of the UPC screen, or where you can add a new product like that. Mine pops up defaulting to a handmade category, and I have to click out of that to kind of get into regular Amazon. So it assumes that all of my new listings are handmade. And so I have this kind of additional screen to kind of click through for the add a product. But the rest of it, I mean, you have a shop that you can set up on your handmade that you can have those kind of settings and stuff. But when they kind of reformatted Seller Central to where it's got all these little, I don't remember what it's called. Yes, where it's got just little squares all over it. Like that, mine's exactly the same. Yeah,
I didn't know that. I thought that when you sell on Handmade, it's like a totally different. I was sure that it's like a totally different seller account. So it's basically like a category. So your PPC dashboard looks just like mine.
Yes, 100%. And my PPC for my non-Amazon products are filtered in with my handmade products. I have, like, if I have seasonal items, in my PPC campaigns, it can have both handmade and non-handmade items in the
non-handmade. And then, so the being brand registered on Amazon gives you a lot of marketing benefits. So does that also give you the same marketing benefits on Amazon Handmade? Like, can you do sponsored display ads, or can you do sponsored brand ads and things like that? Or is it just sponsored products?
Because we don't fit the mold, our listings don't function the same. And so they don't necessarily have the same boxes that correlate with everything that Amazon is used to for the other listings. So we have just now, in the last 3 weeks, been promised that we should be able to have access to A+ content, but that's not something that we've ever had before. Our brand registry, like I set up my brand registry almost a year ago, and so mine functions fine as far as my products being able to categorize those as something under my brand, but they are still doing workarounds, and the people who have applied in the last 2 months, nothing is showing up on their brand registry platform, their dashboard there, and Handmade can't figure it out at the moment. I mean, I think they're kind of working through it, but our listings just don't have all the same correlating boxes of everything else that's on Amazon. And so those things that allow us to have access to what pieces of that listing they might be just allowing you to do with that they're trickling in. I mean, it's one of the downsides to Handmade but that being said, most people don't really know the advantages to brand registry and all of the things, so they don't really know what they're missing out on unless you're somebody who realizes all of those things. So
so on a PPC level, it's also different from what you're saying. It's mostly sponsored products that you can do. So you don't have like the display ads or the headline, what we used to call headline ads, but the brand ads and things like that you can't do on Amazon Handmade?
There's certain parts of it. Honestly, I have not delved a lot into the specifics because I know that there's been changing a lot of it. I had originally done it about a year ago. Most of it was not even available. it's slowly rolling out. But even just the regular PPC of setting up separate campaigns and doing all of the work, because I'm a big SEO girl. Like, I have done all my SEO work up, down, sideways, backwards, everything. Like, and so my PPC campaigns run at amazing stats because I have run it into the ground of maximizing both of those avenues. So.
Okay, so 4 different names here. Sinan Marwa Hassan Talal asked, what about certifications? If, for example, you sell handmade toy in Europe, will Amazon require certifications?
So I'm not sure if the question is asking about toys or not, but as far as certification, you would have to. So like if you want to get a European account, I only sell on .com by the nature of the items. I have not delved into other markets. That being said, if you do apply to other international markets, yes, there is a handmade application that goes with that. But most of the time, if you're already selling on .com handmade, it's easy to get into. As far as toys and stuff, that's a different, like, I'm not super familiar with. If you're asking about toy certification, I can't speak to that.
So if do you work with people that sell outside of America? Like, they sell on America, but they make the products in a different country?
It's usually Canada. There's a lot of people, like, I run a Facebook group for handmade Amazon people, and that's usually where we're at, is that it's Canadians who are selling on the .com, and so they're having to then get their items over the border into FBA. They're usually fulfilling everything that they do is usually an FBA model inside of their handmade to sell on .com, just because it's so expensive to kind of ship those over. So some of the people have kind of evolved into selling in European markets and stuff, but honestly, we are mostly people who I'm probably one of the biggest dreamers inside of the handmade category. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of amazing handmade sellers, but 99% of the people selling in this category don't ever dream that big. So
yeah, got it. I asked because I just remembered while we were speaking about it that I was in a mastermind group. So I live in Israel. I come from New Zealand, but I live in Israel. And I was in a mastermind. There are a lot of Amazon private label sellers in Israel, and I was in a mastermind about 2.5 years ago. And I just remembered, I just had a flashback, and I remembered that there was a woman in there that was selling on Amazon handmade, and she was making jewelry. So she was making it in Israel and then sending it to America. I'm guessing, I don't know if she was doing FBM or FBA, and selling it to America. My logic tells me about the question here about certifications that Amazon would be asking you for all the rights, all certifications that are to do with whatever product that you're making. So I'm guessing people make, because one of my questions is, well, what kind of, what does a handmade product look like? But technically anything can be handmade. So it could be, people could possibly also make, skincare products.
100%. Yeah. I have people. I have friends that kill it in the bath bomb arena.
Neat. So those types of things, I'm guessing that they do though need certifications for, because they can't just be putting in, random ingredients in it. Amazon I would guess wouldn't allow for those types of things, that there's danger involved there. So safety issues. So they would probably need certain certifications. Right.
I can't speak specifically to the ingredients. I know that you have to include all the ingredients on your listing, but there's not there's
like,
not
it's not an FDA level.
No, I mean, I think by nature, yes, if those items are what something that falls under an FDA, I think that doesn't really have anything to do with you selling in the handmade category or not. I think that's just by nature what you sell, but you can absolutely sell those in the handmade category. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So many questions. Okay. That means handmade would be also from China, isn't it, Dana?
No.
So can a Chinese seller be making, let's make up a product. Let's say a Chinese seller is making Chinese tea. Okay. Tea may not be a good idea. A product, but they are hand making it in their house in China, or in their whatever in China. Can they sell in the handmade category?
Well, if they're making it out of their house, kind of creating a handmade situation, I wouldn't see why not. That being said, that's part of what they're asking for the vetting process. Like they, excuse me, one of the questions on there is about how many employees. And so they are intending to keep this in a small business fashion. And so you cannot, I'm not telling anyone to lie on the application, but if you're lying on the application because you have too many employees, that's not something that's going to fly in the handmade category. And I will say that they go through and revet you. And so
Really?
I have had many, many conversations with other sellers that Amazon has come back through and say, we are trying to determine if you are still eligible to sell in the handmade category. Please provide these specific things to us. And with that, it's additional proof of how many employees and what does your setup look like, and basically reprove to us that you are not mass producing these items.
Can a product, there's a few more questions here, but I'm just thinking of things while you're speaking because it's just such an interesting subject. Can a product, let's just say I make a product, okay, and I sell it on Amazon handmade, and I've proven it, I've got proof of concept, it's working, it's great, and I now want to go to mass production, right? I no longer want to make it handmade. It doesn't necessarily need to be handmade, and I want to go to mass production. So I'm moving to China. I'm going to now get it mass produced in China or India, wherever. Can I keep that listing, change the category from handmade, and move it to a different category so I'm no longer on a handmade level? No. So I have to make a whole new listing, whole new reviews, everything, starting from scratch.
Because our back end looks completely different. It's not an option to just go through and change the category on that. Yeah. Yep. It's a whole new thing. So that's kind of why I made the comment about dreaming big. Like, yes, you can dream big, but at a certain point, if your end goal, on day one, your end goal is to do this so that you can just mass produce it in China, then like you said, proof of concept may be really your only reason for wanting to play around in the handmade space, because at a certain point, it's going to come back and bite you. They're intending on keeping this truly what they consider to be handmade.
Okay, somebody asked, is there PPC in handmade? We spoke about that earlier, and you said that there is. Yes, anything to do with toys, kids, Amazon will give you access if you have CE certification. This shows that you comply with the EU standards. So how is this affected in handmade? I think that from my understanding, Dana, you would advise that they would look into it on their own, because they don't think you're really wanting to take on.
I don't sell inside of categories that have those restrictions with them. So I'm definitely not able to legally advise on that. But all of those things are still going to apply. If you have something that's required to be posted on the side of your product because your country requires that, that's not going to go away because you sell in the handmade category.
Got it. Tangi, who is a really kick-ass mum and woman in general, not just a mum, but she's just kick-ass, is asked, hello, if I made handmade earrings, can I sell these on Amazon? Is it restricted? What certifications would I need? You guys look great. You look great, ladies. So,
yeah, you can sell them. There's no restrictions. You just have to, if you get into the handmade category, you can sell them. And that's one of the cool things about the handmade category is if you decide that later on you want to sell in a different handmade subcategory, you don't have to reapply for that. So if I decide that I'm making my product and 2 years from now, I want to also start a bath bomb company of selling under the same brand inside of handmade, then I just listed under the bath bomb category of handmade. So there's no reapplication process if you sell for other subcategories. But yeah, there's no restrictions on earrings, just list them.
So how scalable is an Amazon handmade business? And then I'll move on to my next question.
That's only a question I get from you Amazon people. That's funny. I never get asked that on Etsy podcast.
It's because we're always, for many of us, first of all, the end game is to make an exit, right? For many of us, that's the end game. And for many of us, we're getting into this because we want to make the big money. Not all of us. There's many people that are very happy with smaller amounts, and I should be careful the way I word that. But what I mean is,
right,
for the private label sellers that I work with, most of them, they do dream big. They do want, right, to be able to scale to a level where, they're not sitting down necessarily on the computer 17 hours a day, even though I totally do that. But you know what I mean? So, so how scalable is an Amazon handmade business that on Amazon? And then obviously anyone from, my logic, anyone selling on Amazon handmade technically should be selling everywhere. So, Etsy, Facebook Marketplace, Google Shops, whatever, on their own website, etc. And Amazon should probably be just one of the marketplaces that they sell on. But how scalable is it?
It's an interesting question, because I've had people ask me, getting into these Amazon conversations, well, so what's your exit strategy? And I'm like, I've never had an exit strategy because this item is mine. These products are mine. And so I don't know that I could ever sell it off and have someone own what it is that I make. But at the same point, I'm not making them anymore. So it's more kind of growing a brand, and figuring out if I still don't even know if that's my end game yet. Right now, my end game is just to keep writing this and loving it and growing and helping other people figure out how to do the same. But with that, you do kind of have that somewhat of a ceiling. I hate calling it a ceiling, because if you do grow yourself too big, then you're not considered handmade in the Amazon handmade category. That being said, part of my scalability and my growth of my business in general has come from the eye-opening ability of seeing the rest of the Amazon platform. So yes, while I may keep my handmade business at a point where it's just a couple 7 figures, and don't get me wrong, like a couple 7 figures is still a lot, but is it ever going to be $20 million and still be able to keep it at 20 employees? Probably not. No. But with that, I kind of had this whole other branch of my business now of selling other things because I've learned what the Amazon platform can provide. So that to me, that's where the trajectory has really changed with my business, is because it's allowed both of the categories. When I say categories, I'm saying non-handmade and handmade, to catapult together with that, because my knowledge of the platform in general has grown. And my knowledge of growing brands has grown, and my knowledge of growing a business and running employees has grown. But it's definitely not, I'm not speaking from a place of wanting to sit down and have a conversation with somebody who on day one, their goal is an exit strategy of $20 million and let me do it in the handmade category. That's not my people.
Yeah, FYI, an exit doesn't have to be 7 figures. I mean, I've got someone going through an exit. I've got someone going through an exit right now, and he makes around $500,000 in revenue a year, and there's still an aggregator that is really interested in his products, and he's going through an exit right now. And for him, that's the exit. The fact that it's a 6-figure exit doesn't mean that it's not an exit. So
100%.
Yeah. Yep. I guess though, if you do get to a level where the entire business is not only dependent on you, as in you do have, it would be interesting to speak to Thrasio or an aggregator about this type of question. I'd be interested to see what they have to say about it. But if the business isn't entirely only dependent on you like it is today, I mean, you could go off, from what I'm understanding, for a month overseas if you wanted, and your business would still be running.
Correct.
Because you've got
work made by my people. Like my product, and not all handmade products are the same, but my product isn't really Chinese makeable.
Got it.
Like I couldn't find a factory to turn around and create these products the way that we create them, because there's still a design element and there's still a personal preference and all of that. That's not really. And I will say that, like, the product that I sell is oversized. I sell in the oversized size category for most of my products. And so with that, that's why I don't sell in the other markets and stuff, because the cost associated with the transport of all of that is not something that I've ever really found feasible, at least at this point. But so with that, my products are, it may not be me making them, but it's still people who have been trained to create products that are under my design style and these products that it's just not, I don't foresee it just being something that you could ever really source out and just basically duplicate this warehouse in another place around the country or something like that. So that's kind of the struggle.
If you were able, again, I it would be interesting to hear, just to understand from an aggregator side.
Absolutely.
If you were able to copy paste the way you make this product and teach someone else to do it, I don't really see why, if it was, if an aggregator saw it as something that is scalable, interesting to them, etc., I don't see why you couldn't possibly make an exit, because it's just because it isn't a Chinese manufacturer making it, doesn't matter. You can have your own warehouse and your own, go through your own manufacturing process. Right. So I just wanted to ask, because there's a few more questions and then we'll start wrapping it up. But there was a question that I thought of, which was really, you said something and it's gone now. I hope it comes back because it was an important one. Okay. You said if you get too big on Amazon Handmade, then Amazon Handmade will sort of come back and say, what's going on. What does that mean, and how does that look like on an Amazon level?
I haven't heard of it happening to anyone. So I caveat that in that if I'm someone that people look up to for advice and learning how to grow this handmade business, I would be remiss if I did not make people aware of the fact that that is part of what Amazon is asking for when they're trying to reiterate this. So have I heard of anybody just saying, okay, Amazon saw that you got to 21 people. Sorry, you're shut down. Move all your stuff to regular Amazon. That's not a thing that I've seen happen. But this is a baby platform, guys. Like Etsy's been around for, I think, like 10 or 12 years. This has only been around for 5. And so the evolution of what happens when you put handmade people on a platform where it can grow and grow and grow and expand, only time will tell what the people inside of that handmade filter that they're going to cut your business off or not. That's kind of up to them. And so I would be remiss if I did not make people aware. Like one of the things on the application is the 20 employees. Like if you decide that you want to grow this and continue to make it the same beautiful handmade products, but you have 50 employees making them, Amazon may love the fact that you're driving traffic to their category, and they may never shut you down, but they also could. There's no hard set. I mean, is anything in Amazon like hard set rules? Like, sorry, you hit this, and like I'm working with the same struggles you all are here. Like, how do we interpret this? And so, it's I don't know what that looks like because I've never had anyone just get an email saying no. But I have had people that Amazon have reviewed or re-reviewed kind of their submissions of what's happening in their business, and they have said, I'm sorry, you're no longer eligible to sell in handmade. So most of this has not been become that you got to be more than 20 employees or because you scaled so big. It's more that you aren't really making your products much anymore, that you've outsourced 99% of that.
Interesting. Got it. Okay. We have here, what about Etsy in terms of handmade? Is it easier to sell on Etsy or to get into?
Yes, 100%. I kind of spoke to this at the beginning, but if you are someone who is not already coming from a business mindset of knowing that this takes dedication and time and really digging into your target market and figuring out photography and all of that stuff. Again, if you're a handmade person, most of the people that I work with, the stuff that they make and photograph in the first 6 months either fall apart or their photos look like they took them in their basement. Like you're just dealing with a different set of people. And so I urge people that if you're starting out a handmade business without a good business acumen to begin with, Etsy is a great way to work out those kinks before you get onto a platform like Amazon that can eat you alive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tanji said, thank you. Very helpful. We'll make my handmade account. So we just said that it's under the same account, but it's just a different category. I sell FBA, so don't need to apply for handmade, right?
Handmade is a category, so you have to apply for handmade, but you can absolutely sell FBA.
Yeah. Cool. And do I use already established registered brand.
If
So
the items
Tangi
that
already
you're selling,
are under the same brand. Tangi already has her own brand on Amazon. She already I just know Tangi. So she sells multiple products under her own brand. So the answer is yes, as long as you want it under the same brand, right? Mm-hmm. So then would the handmade products show up on the same storefront as the non-handmade products? Yes, because it's just a category.
Just a category.
Yeah. Wow, this was very informative, Dana. I have to say, I feel like there's probably a lot more to learn, but there's only so much we can go through in an hour. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I think that you need to be on all the freaking podcasts because I think it's such an important subject because especially with things, because you and I met on Clubhouse, and especially today with things like Clubhouse, and I'm also on YouTube and things like that. There's more and more people that want to get into Amazon, but there's also a lot of people where Amazon isn't really for them. And when I say Amazon, I'm not talking about handmade specifically. I'm talking about, that they're not able they're not going to be able to handle the cash flow needed, etc. for let's just say private label, or it's not actually Amazon. It could be that private label isn't for them, or wholesale isn't for them, or So I think that there's many people where a great entry point is handmade, right? So it's more of a beginner level, what we're speaking about, but I think not only, there could be someone here that has, a 7-figure business and also their, daughter makes something that, they could totally make another business out of. So I'm pretty sure that when you first started this, you didn't necessarily know that you were going to turn this into, a 7-figure business and have 20 employees or whatever, whatever it may be. I also heard that your employees, most of them are mummies, like you which is good on you. I think that's
my business platform has always been from day one, because I remember I was running this while working a corporate job. So for the first year and a half, probably of the business, everything was made after 9 p.m. When my babies went to bed, then I made it myself. And then the girl that came and started to work for me was someone that I met at my church. And she did the same thing. She put her kids to bed, came to my house, and we made the items from 9 to midnight, And so I have tried to kind of keep that feel. I do have people who work for me more hours than three hours a day. But it's still, my platform is still built off of, and there's some men who work here now because I have a lot of boxes to move and stuff. But it's still built off of the people who want to kind of help make ends meet, but they still want to pick their kids up from school. And that will probably be something that at least at this point, I don't really have any intention of ever moving away from.
I think that because the pandemic also made a lot of people need to pivot, right? Which isn't a bad thing, but a lot of people have needed to pivot due to losing their job or whatever it may be, and therefore I think that this is just a great entry point. And I also think your business structure is really great. Like you're doing something important in the world, making sure that stay-at-home moms, etc., also have the ability to still be a mom and also so good on you. Tangi, we're great, ladies. I did not even know all of this. Time to go do more. Thank you. Appreciate the knowledge. You're super at this, Sharon. Thank you for your dedication and time. Thank you, Tangi. And nice to meet you, Dana. Thanks for sharing. Dana, thank you so much for being here. If anyone wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
So my handle there, Dana Midkiff Coach, is what I am on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm on Clubhouse at just Dana Midkiff. But realistically, the biggest place that I'm in and day out, I have a Facebook group that it's Handmade at Amazon Dana Midkiff. And that's my people. That's my people who, I have people who are at similar levels to me. I have people who are just starting out. And so it's a group that is positivity you're not going to come into my group and just bash Amazon. We're going to either help you figure it out and get you to a place where your handmade business can grow, or we'll move on and see you on the Etsy side,
Yeah.
realistically, it's a platform that my people inside of growing a handmade business have a lot of struggles in usually like the first 6 months of, well, why does this not work this way? So that's another thing we didn't touch on real quick. I don't get charged the $40 fee.
I wanted to ask what the free fee structure looks like.
Yes. Yeah. So that $40, you're required to have a professional account to sell in handmade, but they waive that fee, and that's part of them like pulling those Etsy people in. I will say they say that you're supposed to be charged that $40 fee if you sell more than 40 items outside of the handmade category. But I can tell you that for the last 5 years, I have sold more than that outside the handmade category. And I've opened several cases over the years to try to answer my colleagues' questions of, well, where does it show up? And mine has never been charged. So,
but you do have the referral fees. The referral fees are the same.
Yeah.
Referral fees are the same, and then so are their FBA fees.
Yeah, it's all just related to your size and the weight, same as anything else. So,
and the referral fee is 15%. Do you know? Yep. Okay. Tangi also said that she didn't even know that she could sell handmade stuff, which is why we make content like this. Yeah.
Right.
Dan, do you also have a YouTube channel? Because you should. If you don't, you really should. I think it's an important subject that many people need to hear.
Out how to clone me, and then I like
tell me about it. I totally know what you mean. Dana, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everyone that's here live with us and for everyone that's listening. Isabella will be back with her show on Monday, and I will see you all next Thursday. Danny will be here on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thank you, Dana, so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.